and welcome to this first look exploring session looking at the tragedy of Alphonsus, Emperor of Germany. I would tell you some more about when the play was written and who wrote it, but it's complicated because some people don't seem to agree, and it has quite a long span, so I'm not even going to bother trying. I'm just going to see what comes out of the play and see how the play functions, because we like how plays work. Sometimes we can just get bogged down on the stuff that doesn't matter to a random audience member who turns up to a show without reading the blurb in advance. So without further ado, reading this play, we're going to be looking at over 3 sessions and trying to decipher some quite knotty bits of text. Some people may be struggling, but that's not for any other reason than the text is a bit weird at times. Reading today, reading Alphonsus and Trier is.
Hello, I'm Sarah Blake, actor, writer and director based in Germany.
Reading Lozenzo and Mentz is.
Hello, I'm Lois Potter, retired academic living in London.
Reading Brandenburg is.
Briony Sparrow, actor in Lincolnshire.
Reading Bohemia is.
Stuck. Hi, I'm Eric, and I will be the Bohemian for the evening or afternoon, and I don't know what day it is.
And who knows when it actually will get released later on, and what time anyone will be watching it then. Reading Saxon and Hedewick is.
Hi, Elizabeth Amisu, writer based in Romford.
Reading Palatine and Richard is.
Alan Scott, confused in Suffolk.
Reading Collen and Edward is.
Lynn, I live in the Northwestern United States. I am a mild-mannered college composition teacher, and this is my faithful assistant, Scooter.
And reading Empress and Alexander is.
Ich heiße Helena, and I should warn you now, ich kann kein Deutsch.
Spoilers for the future. And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I will be reading the stage directions, inferred or otherwise. Stage directions may be slightly wonky. There's always that possibility they're being slightly misplaced or unhelpful. So we'll see how it goes. This definitely got printed quite late in the day and had a performance history relatively late in the period that we work from. It opens with this rather nice little to the reader, which I'll just read a line from. I will not raise thy expectation further, nor delay thy entertainment by a tedious prefix. The design is high, the contrivement subtle, and will deserve thy grave attention in the perusal. Promises, promises. So let's find out what the text has in order for us with Act 1, Scene 1. Enter Alphonsus, the Emperor, in his nightgown and his shirt, and a torch in his hand. Alexander de Cyprus, his page, following him.
Boy, give me the master key of all the doors. To bed again, and leave me to myself.
Exit Alexander.
Is Richard come? Have 4 electors sworn to make him Kaiser in despite of me? Why then, Alphonsus, it is time to wake. No, Englishman, thou art too hot at hand, too shallow-brained to undermine my throne. The Spanish sun hath purified my wit, and dried up all gross humours in my head, that I am cited as the king of birds, and can discern thy deepest stratagems. I am the lawful German emperor, chosen, installed by general consent, and they may term me tyrant as they please. I will be king, and tyrant, if I please. For what is émoi but a tyranny, and none but children use it otherwise? Of 7 electors, 4 are fallen away. The other 3 I dare not greatly trust. My wife is sister to mine enemy, and therefore wisely to be dealt withal. But why do I accept in special, when this position must be general, that no man living must be credited further than tends unto thy proper good? But to the purpose of my silent walk. Within this chamber lies my secretary, Lozenzo de Cyprus, in whose learned brain is all the compass of the world contained. And as the ignorant and simple age of our forefathers, blinded in their zeal, received dark answers from Apollo's shrine, and honoured him as patron of their bliss, so I, not muffled in simplicity, zealous indeed of nothing but my good, haste to the augur of my happiness to lay the ground of my ensuing wars. He learns his wisdom not by flight of birds, by prying into sacrificed beasts, by hares that cross the way, by howling wolves, by gazing on the starry element, or vain imaginary calculations, but from a settled wisdom in itself, which teacheth to be void of passion, to be religious as the ravenous wolf, who loves the lamb for hunger and for prey, to threaten our inferiors with our looks, to flatter our superiors at our need, to be an outward saint, an inward devil. These are the lectures that my master reads. This key commands all chambers in the court. Now on a sudden I will try his wit. I know my coming is unlooked for.
And he opens the door and finds Lorenzo asleep aloft.
Nay, sleep, Lorenzo. I will walk a while. As nature in the framing of the world ordained there should be nihil vacuum, even so methinks his wisdom should contrive that all his study should be full of wit, and every corner stuffed with sentences. Or what's this? Plato, Aristotle, these are ordinary. It seems this is a note but newly written.
He reads a note which he finds among his books.
Una arbusta non alit duos alithacos, which being granted, the Roman Empire will not suffice Alphonsus, King of Castile, and Richard, Earl of Cornwall, his competitor. Thy wisdom teacheth thee to cleave to the strongest. Alphonsus is in possession, and therefore the strongest. But he is in hatred with the electors, and men rather honour the sun rising than the sun going down. I marry, this is argued like himself, and now methinks he wakes.
And Lorenzo riseth. But before we get to that dramatic moment when somebody else says some words, I think we should just take in this opening to a play. That thing of someone enters in nightgown, immediately tells boy to go and leave the stage so I can tell the audience some stuff. Hi, would you like a précis of the plot? But it's quite an effective one because it is coming from a place of character and darkness and stuff. And it gets the information across quite quickly. Is Richard come? Have 4 electors sworn to make him Kaiser in despite of me? I think it basically sets up pretty much all you need to know. It then goes into greater detail, but that's a very, very tight way of just pushing us into where we are, and it's got some really interesting things, some interesting parallels. Thoughts from the room about Alphonsus, Alan and Eric.
Yeah, the bit that confused me was the last stage direction. He reads a note which he finds among his books. And I'm wondering, is this Lorenzo's books, which would give one line to the plot, or Alphonsus's?
I think they must be Lorenzo's. I mean, he's broken into a Lorenzo's chamber, so there'll be, a small number of books. He wouldn't have had all that many anyhow. I'm trying to picture what this chamber is like, though. I mean, it seems to be the sort of inner bit of the stage, but Lorenzo is sleeping aloft.
Yeah, I mean, there's a stage condition in place here that we may get more data on later on because the scene is not over. But yeah, it's a really interesting question. We have someone effectively discovered, an area discovered that we didn't initially scene 2 for this play. Eric.
Yeah, I kind of, there's probably going this pattern of sort of, give me the master key and leave seems very much like, Tancred and Gismunda, or like other tragedies that we've seen, sort of neoclassical stuff where it's like, oh, look, a person is coming to sort of, leave on stage. But yeah, I don't know, it's kind of interesting. There's a lot of animal talk, like the king of birds, the wolf, the lamb, I don't know, just it's very interesting how Alphonsus describes both himself and others, sort of in terms of like hierarchy, I guess, or like a food chain. I don't know, it's just sort of, yeah.
Helen.
But there's been a lot of disguised duke talk recently. Everybody's been conferring on disguised dukes. But it strikes me that there's a subset of disguised dukes, which is sort of lurking emperors. Wandering around to ruffle through their subjects' private papers in the hope of finding something interesting. That was what I took from this. That here's another of these people who are trying to find out what their subjects are actually up to, which is why he gives Lorenzo no notice of his arrival, because he wants to catch his immediate reaction.
Right, well, having mentioned his immediate reaction, let's have it. So, having awaken him, or be in the room while he awakes, Lorenzo riseth and snatches at his sword, which hung by his bedside.
What? Are there thieves within the emperor's court? Villain, thou diest. What makest thou in my chamber?
How now, Lorenzo? Wilt thou slay thy lord?
Oh, I do beseech your sacred majesty to pardon me. I did not know your grace.
Lie down, Lorenzo. I will sit by thee. The air is sharp and piercing. Tremble not. Had it been any other but ourselves, he must have been a villain and a thief.
Alas, my lord, what means your excellence to walk by night in these so dangerous times?
Have I not reason now to walk and watch, when I am compassed with so many foes? They ward, they watch, they cast and they conspire to win confederate princes to their aid, and batter down the eagle from my crest. Oh, my Lorenzo, if thou help me not, the imperial crown is shaken from my head, and given from me unto an English earl. Thou knowest how all things stand as well as we, who are our enemies and who are our friends, who must be threatened and who dallied with, who won by words and who by force of arms. For all the honour I have done to thee, now speak, and speak to purpose in the cause. Nay, rest thy body, labour with thy brain, and of thy words myself will be the scribe.
Why then, my lord, take paper, pen, and ink. Write first this maxim, it shall do you good. 1. A prince must be of the nature of the lion and the fox, but not the one without the other.
The fox is subtle, but he wanteth force. The lion strong, but scorneth policy. I'll imitate Lysander in this point, and where the lion's hide is thin and scant, I'll firmly patch it with the fox's fell. Let it suffice. I can be both in one.
2. A prince above all things must seem devout, but there is nothing so dangerous to his state as to regard his promise nor his oath.
Fear not me, my promises are sound, but he that trusts them shall be sure to fail.
Nay, my good lord, but that I know your majesty to be a ready and quick-witted scholar, I would bestow a comment on the text. 3. Trust not a reconciled friend, for good turns cannot blot out old grudges.
Then I must watch the Palatine of the Rhine. I caused his father to be put to death.
Your Highness hath as little cause to trust the dangerous, mighty Duke of Saxony. You know you sought to banish him the land. And as for Collen, was not he the first that sent for Richard unto Germany?
What's thy opinion of the other four?
That Bohemia neither cares for one nor other, but hopes this deadly strife between you twain will cast the imperial crown upon his head. For Trier and Brandenburg, I think of them as simple men that wish the common good. And as for Mentz, I need not censure him. Richard hath chained him in a golden bond and saved his life from ignominious death.
Suffice, Lorenzo, that I know. When Churfist Mentz was taken prisoner by young victorious Otto, Duke of Braunschweig, that Richard, Earl of Cornwall, did disperse the ransom of a king, 1,000,000, to save his life and rid him out of bands. That sum of gold did fill the Braunschweig bags. But since myself have rained a golden shower of bright Hungarian ducats and crusados into the private coffers of the bishop, the English angels took their wings and fled. My crosses bless his coffers and plead for me. His voice is mine, bought with 10 ton of gold, and at the meeting of the 7 electors, his princely double-dealing holiness will spoil the English emperor of hope. But I refer these matters to the sequel. Proceed, Lorenzo. Forward to the next.
I'm glad your grace hath dealt so cunningly with that vainglorious, fickle-minded prelate, for in election his voice is first. But to the next. 4. 'Tis more safety for a prince to be feared than loved.
Love is in humour pleaseth him that loves. Let me be hated, so I please myself. Love is a humour mild and changeable, but fear engraves a reverence in the heart.
5. To keep an usurped crown, a prince must swear, forswear, poison, murder, and commit all kinds of villainies, provided it be cunningly kept from the eye of the world.
But my Lorenzo, that's the hardest point. It is not for a prince to execute. Physicians and apothecaries must know, and servile fear or counsel-breaking bribes will from a peasant in an hour extort enough to overthrow a monarchy.
Therefore, my lord, set down this 6th and last article. 6. Be always jealous of him that knows your secrets, and therefore it behooves you credit few, and when you grow into the least suspect, with silent cunning must you cut them off. As, for example, Julius Lentulus, a most renowned Neapolitan, gave me this box of poison. 'Twas not long, but therewithal I sent him to his grave.
And what's the special virtue of the same?
That it is 20 days before it works.
But what is this?
This is an infection that kills suddenly. This but a toy to cast a man asleep.
How? Being drunk?
No, being smelt unto.
Then smell, Lorenzo. I did break thy sleep, and for this time this lecture shall suffice.
Oh, what have you done, my lord? You've made me safe for stirring, hence these 24 hours.
And Lorenzo sleeps.
I see. This charms his senses suddenly. How now, Lorenzo, half asleep already? Aeneas's pilot, by the god of dreams, was never lulled into a sounder trance. And now, Alphonsus, overread thy notes.
And he reads.
These are already at my fingers' ends. Unless the world should find this little schedule, thus will I rend the text. And after this, on my behaviour set so fine a gloss that men shall take me for a convertite. but some may think I should forget my part and have been over-rash in rending it. To put them out of doubt, I study sure. I'll make a backward repetition in being jealous of my counsel keepers. This is the poison that kills suddenly. So didst thou unto Julius Lentulus, and blood with blood must be requited thus.
And poisons Lorenzo.
Now am I safe, and no man knows my counsels. Churfest of Mentz, if now thy play thy part, earning thy gold with cunning workmanship upon the beamish king's ambition, Richard shall shamefully fall of his hope, and I, with triumph, keep my empery.
Exit Alphonsus. Boo! Hiss.
Yeah, boy, am I angry at that.
Yeah. I mean, the sixth point, you really dug your own grave, has to be said.
Yeah,
Just
how
going, if you do take people into your council, kill them off as quickly as possible. Here is my sample kit. Let me talk you through the different ways of disposing of people. Here is the long-term poison. Here's the one that kills people straight away. Here's the sleeping draft. I mean, just...
Yeah.
No. Dear.
And it's all coming out of the prince, of course. I mean, these maps.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a few years since I've read The Prince, but this really sounds like Machiavelli, like the real Machiavelli. There was a sort of popular idea of Machiavelli as being basically, evil for its own sake, but that wasn't actually the principles of the prince. The prince was more about do whatever it takes to stay in power. Do whatever it takes. Be a good leader if that's what it takes. Kill people and break your promises if that's what it takes. And so that's definitely what Lorenzo.
I mean, the great thing with Machiavelli is that he didn't pretend that any of these things were virtuous. I mean, he says it's much better to be, generous and to keep your promises and so on. But of course, if you do that, you'll be dead in a week. So in fact, what you've got to do is, all this other stuff that I advise.
Yeah, and it's very situational, and it gives examples, which is sort of what happens here as well. So it said, well, if you do this, then let me give you a historical example of why this king failed miserably to hold this country. Because, he went in, force of arms, and he didn't set up locals to take control, or he didn't bring his own men in to enforce his power, and very, very practical things, and lots of historical references to, or biblical as well. The sort of what we might call pseudo-historical references. I'm not saying that I have an audiobook version of The Prince read by Ian Richardson that I listen to every so often. Anyway, but you couldn't possibly comment. Anyway, Alan, then Eric.
Yeah, I must admit, to describe one of the electors or two of the electors as having care for the common weal did strike me as, particularly in modern times, to be somewhat ironic. It's posh boys looking after themselves again.
Eric.
Yeah, I found it interesting how he goes, so what do you think of all these people who are competing for my crown? And then basically these are people that we've not met yet, but it basically tells you the relationship between the characters who will follow. And Alphonsus, it goes... Bohemia is neither one way or the other, but hoping, that this deadly strife between you twain will cost the imperial crown on his head. So basically, it's just interesting how that short speech sets up the relationships for. I'm guessing. I've not read the play, but it sets up the relationships for the rest of the play.
Yeah, and it's the way the people who do wish the common good are described as simple. They're simple men, so you can, and of course, there's people who you can bribe, and again, it's setting out those logistical issues for how do you snatch power, or or what he believes is his right to power. I mean, we don't know too much about Richard yet. And it's the way that this is a very self-contained, this sort of nighttime wandering around. It's a very low-key opening, but it does draw you in. I'm drawn in, I have to say. We will open out in a moment. Lois.
Yeah. I was struck by, well, the language seems to me to be very effective and quite sophisticated. And I love all these puns on different kinds of coins that Alphonsus comes out with, that since I myself have rained a golden shower of bright Hungarian ducats and cruzados into the private coffers of the bishop, the English angels took their wings and fled. I mean, everybody by now knows that an angel is a coin. And then my crosses, which is another coin, bless his coffers, and plead for me. I mean, it's really great.
Yeah.
Lynn, then Eric.
Yeah, I was actually struck by that little bit too, because in Europe there were so many different denominations and all these common names for coins. The writer exploits that, and there's a lot of punning and sort of wordplay, and it's great because that slipperiness of language associated with the power of money. It's just I think artistically very nice in that moment. So what I was thinking is, my gosh, a lot gets done in these first couple pages. We've established the character of Alphonsus, the political situation, the sort of realpolitik, the sort of cynicism of the whole world here. You've got a really great world building. You've got this really ironic moment where Lorenzo's giving all this good advice and then basically gets killed because he fails to sort of understand the implications of his own advice. So much gets done, and it draws you in. It's like, whoa, what's going on here?
Yeah, you think this very speechy, very PowerPoint presentation-y, 1, 2, 3, etc. And you'd think that this should be boring as hell, but someone has died by the end of the scene. We've only technically met one character who's got any any forward momentum, shall we say? Unless, of course, Lorenzo was playing a double bluff, and actually, no, it's they don't do anything. I don't think so. I think Lorenzo is very, very dead. Eric.
Yeah, I was struck by the fact that sort of you have this moment of clearly, the emperor is walking around sort of, agitated, presumably, can't sleep, paranoia, so on and so forth. And he watches his assistant counselor wake. And the counselor just, I don't know, whatever time it is, if it's midnight or whatever, just kind of goes, here's my PowerPoint presentation on politics today. It's just that there's a part of me going, he's probably done this before for the emperor, but sort of is not aware that the emperor watches him sleep, which is not creepy at all.
Well, I mean, the thing is, he's presumably said to Lorenzo, right, I want you to go on a fact-finding mission, do some research and give me a presentation later. And what's happened is he's just turned up at 3 o'clock in the morning before the presentation and said, right, show me what you've got. He's one of these people who believes on catching people off guard to find out what comes out. Sarah, did you wave?
I did, yes. I was just going to... Other people have kind of said this already, but I think one of the reasons why it isn't boring is because there is no status quo. In terms of, quite often in a play, the status quo is set up and then the character goes on their journey. And there isn't any of that with this. We're straight into the journey, straight away. And the playwright is just trusting the audience to get it, to pick up on who this character is straight away. And so even though there is a lot of exposition, because it feels like we've come in at a later point where Alfonso is already in the middle of a huge conflict and has a huge amount of fear and rage and everything else going on, it's just, the playwright is confident in his own abilities and trusts the audience enough to say, this is what's happening, go with it. And consequently, even though he is, there is quite a lot of exposition, it's really, really compelling and world building, like Lynn was saying.
Excellent. Well, let's now expand the canvas and meet all of the people we know all about, and a few people who we just haven't met yet. Act 1, Scene 2. Enter the King of Bohemia, the bishops of Mentz, Collen, Trier, and the Palatine of the Rhine, the Duke of Saxon, and the Marquis of Brandenburg.
Care first and princes of the election. Since by the adverse fortune of our age, the sacred and imperial majesty hath been usurped by open tyranny, we, the 7 pillars of the German Empire, to whom successively doth belong to make election of our emperors, are here assembled to unite anew unto her former strength and glorious type our half-declining Roman monarchy. And in that hope I, Henry, King of Bohemia, care first and stewards of the emperor, do take my seat next to the sacred throne.
Next seat belongs to Julius Florenz, Archbishop of Mainz, Chancellor of Germany, by birth the Duke of fruitful Pommerland.
The next place in election belongs to me, George Casimus, Palgrave of the Rhine, His Highness Taster, and upon my knee I vow pure, sincere, innate zeal unto my country, and no rested hate or private love shall blind my intellect.
Brave Duke of Saxon, Touchland's greatest hope, stir now or never. Let the Spanish tyrant that hath dishonored us, murdered our friends, and stained this seat with blood of innocence, at last be chastised with the Saxon sword. And may Albertus, Archbishop of Collen, Chancellor of Gallia, and the 4th elector, be thought unworthy of his place in birth, but if he assist thee to his utmost power.
Wisdom, not words, must be the sovereign salve to search and heal these grievous festered wounds. And in that hope, Augustus, Duke of Saxon, Archmarshal to the Emperor, take my place.
The like doth Frederick, Archbishop of Trier, Duke of Lorraine, Chancellor of Italy.
The 7th and last is Joachim Carolus, Marquis of Brandenburg, overworn with age, whose office is to be the treasurer. But wars have made the coffers like the chair. Peace bringeth plenty, wars bring poverty. Grant heavens this meeting may be to effect, establish peace and cut off tyranny.
And enter to the summit the Empress Isabella, King John's daughter.
Pardon my bold intrusion, mighty Curtheths, and let my words pierce deeply in your hearts. Oh, I beseech you, on my bended knees, I, the poor miserable Empress, a stranger in this land, unused to broils, wife to the one, and sister to the other that are competitors for sovereignty. All that I pray is, make a quiet end. Make peace between my husband and my brother. Oh, think how grief doth stand on either side if either party chance to be amiss. My husband is my husband, but my brother, my heart doth melt to think he should miscarry. My brother is my brother, but my husband, oh, how my joints do shake, fearing his wrong. If both should die in these uncertain broils, oh me, why do I live to think upon't? Bear with my interrupted speeches, lords, tears stop my voice. Your wisdoms know my meaning. Alas, I know my brother Richard's heart affects not empire. He would rather choose to make return again to Palestine and be a scourge unto the infidels. As for my lord, he is impatient. The more my grief, the lesser is my hope. Yet, princes, thus he sends you word by me. He will submit himself to your award and labor to amend what is amiss. All I have said or can devise or to say is few words of great worth. Make unity.
Madam, that we have suffered you to kneel so long agrees not with your dignity nor ours. Thus we excuse it when we once are set in solemn council of election. We may not rise till somewhat be concluded. So much for that, touching your earnest suit, your majesty doth know how it concerns us. Comfort yourself, as we do hope the best. But tell us, madam, where's your husband now?
I left him at his prayers, good my lord.
At prayers? Madam, that's a miracle.
Undoubtedly, your highness did mistake. 'Twas sure some book of conjuration. I think he never said prayer in his life.
Ah, me. My fear, I fear, will take effect. Your hate to him and love unto my brother will break my heart and spoil the imperial peace.
My lord of Saxon and Prince Palatine, this hard opinion yet is more than needs. But gracious madam, leave us to ourselves.
I go, and heaven that holds the hearts of kings, direct your counsels unto unity.
And exit Empress Isabella.
Now, to the depth of that we have in hand. This is the question, whether the King of Spain shall still continue in the royal throne or yield it up unto Plantagenet, or we proceed unto a third election.
Ere such a viperous, bloodthirsty Spaniard shall suck the hearts of our nobility, the imperial sword which Saxony doth bear shall be unsheathed to war against the world.
My hate is more than words can testify. Slave as he is, he murdered my father.
Prince Richard is the champion of the world, learned and mild, fit for government.
And what have we to do with Englishmen? They are divided from our continent. But now that we may orderly proceed to our high office of election, to you, my lord of Mentz, it doth belong, having first voice in this imperial synod, to name a worthy man for emperor.
It may be thought, most grave and reverend princes, that in respect of divers sums of gold, which Richard of mere charitable love, not as a bribe, but as a deed of alms, dispersed for me unto the Duke of Braunschweig, that I dare name no other man but he. Or should I nominate another prince? Upon the contrary, I may be thought a most ungrateful wretch unto my friend. But private cause must yield to public good. Therefore, methinks it were the fittest course to choose the worthiest upon this bench.
We are old Germans. Why should we be yoked either by Englishmen or Spaniards?
The Earl of Cornwall, by a full consent, was sent for out of England.
Though he were, our later thoughts are purer than our first. And to conclude, I think this end were best, since we have once chosen him emperor, that some great prince of wisdom and of power, whose countenance may overbear his pride, be joined in equal government with Alphonsus.
Your holiness hath soundly in few words set down a mean to quiet all these broils.
So may we hope for peace, if he amend. But shall Prince Richard then be joined with him?
Why should your highness ask that question? As if a prince of so high kingly birth would live in couples with so base a cur.
Prince Palatine, such words do ill become thee.
He said but right, and called a dog.
His birth is princely.
His manners villainous, and virtuous Richard scorned so base a yoke.
My lord of Saxon, give me leave to tell you, ambition blinds your judgment in this case. You hope if by your means Richard be emperor, he in requital of so great advancement will make the long-desired marriage up between the Prince of England and your daughter. And to that end, Edward, the Prince of Wales, hath borne his uncle company to Germany.
Why, King of Bohemia, is it unknown to thee how oft the Saxon sons have married queens, and daughters kings? Yea, mightiest emperors. If Edward like her beauty and behaviour, he'll make no question of her princely birth. But let that pass. I say, as erst I said, that virtuous Richard scorns so base a yoke.
If Richard scorn, someone upon this bench whose power may overbear Alphonsus' pride is to be named. What think you, my lords?
I think it was a mighty mass of gold that made your grace of this opinion.
My lord of Saxony, you wrong me much, and know I highly scorn to take a bribe.
I think you scorn indeed to have it known, but to the purpose. If it must be so, who is the fittest man to join with him?
First with an ox to plough will I be yoked.
The fittest is your grace, in mine opinion.
I am content to stay these mutinies to take upon me what you do impose.
Why, here's a tempest quickly overblown. God give you joy, my lord, of half the empire. For me, I will not meddle in the matter, but warn your majesty to have a care and vigilant respect unto your person. I'll hie me home to fortify my towns, not to offend, but to defend myself.
Ah, with you, cousin, and adieu, my lords. I'm afraid this sudden knitted peace will turn into a tedious, lasting war. Only thus much do we request you all. Deal honourably with the Earl of Cornwall. And so, adieu.
Exeunt Saxon and Palatine.
I like not this strange farewell of the dukes.
In all elections, some are malcontent. It doth concern us now with speed to know how the competitors will like of this. And therefore you, my lord Bishop of Trier, impart this order of arbitrament unto the emperor. Bid him be content to stand content with half, or lose the whole. My lord of Mentz, go you unto Prince Richard, and tell him flatly there's no crown nor empire for English islanders. Tell him 'twere his best to hie him home to help the king his brother against the Earl of Leicester and the barons.
My lord of Mentz, sweet words will qualify when bitter terms will add unto his rage. 'Tis no small hope that hath deceived the duke, therefore be mild. I know an Englishman being flattered is a lamb, threatened a lion. Tell him his charges, whatsoever they are, shall be repaid with treble vantages. Do this, we will expect their resolutions.
Brother of Collen, I entreat your grace to take this charge upon you in my stead, for why I shame to look him in the face.
Your holiness shall pardon me in this. Had I the profit, I would take the pains. With shame enough, your grace may bring the message.
Thus am I wronged, God knows, unguiltily.
Then arm your countenance with innocency, and boldly do the message to the prince, for no man else will be the messenger.
Why, then I must, since there's no remedy.
And exit Mentz.
If heaven that guides the hearts of mighty men do calm the minds of these great potentates, and make them like of this arbitrament, sweet peace will triumph through Christendom, and Germany shall bless this happy day.
Enter Alexander to Toledo, the prince. The page, rather, sorry.
Oh, me! Most miserable! Oh, my dear father!
But what means this passionate accent? What art thou that sounds these exclamations to our ears, in our ears?
Oh, pardon me, princes. I have lost a father. Oh, me, the name of father kills my heart. Oh, I shall never see my father more. Has ta'en his leave of me for age and age.
What was thy father?
Ay me, what was he not? Noble, rich, valiant, well beloved of all, the glory and the wisdom of his age, chief secretary to the emperor.
Lorenzo de Toledo, is he dead?
Dead, ay me, dead, ay me. My life is dead. Strangely, this night bereft of breath and sense, and I, poor I, am comforted in nothing, but that the emperor laments with me, As I exclaim, so he wrings his hands and makes me mad to see his majesty excruciate himself with endless sorrow.
The happiest news that ever I did hear. Thy father was a villain murderer, witty, not wise, loved like a scorpion, grown rich by the impoverishing of others, the chiefest cause of all these mutinies, and Caesar's tutor to all villainy.
None but an open liar terms him so.
What, boy, so malapert?
Good cousin, bear with him. It was his father. Deutschland is blessed in Lorenzo's death.
Did never live a viler-minded man.
And they exit en masse apart from Alexander.
Nor king, nor Kiefer should be privileged to call me boy and rail upon my father. Were I worth Saffling, but in Germany, a man must be a boy at 40 years and dares not draw his weapon at a dog till being soundly boxed about the ears, his lord and master gird him with a sword. The time will come, I shall be made a man. Till then I'll pine with thoughts of dire revenge and live in hell until I take revenge.
And exit Alexander. Wow, there's a lot of stuff going on in that scene. We've just had, I say, the page from earlier, who we met at the very beginning of the play, and actually that what seemed like a pointless entrance is actually quite useful because it ties him in with the actions of the previous scene. And so he's coming in grief-stricken about Lorenzo. I just love Collen just going, "Oh, good, he's dead, is he? He was a bastard." It's just going, and the other one's just going, "Yeah, it's just he's dead." So yeah, we just have all these. It starts off very big meetup, big meeting, big press conference-y kind of thing. There's so many little weird parallels with events happening right now. Is that we've got this big conference going on, and it feels like that sort of thing. Hello, let me just introduce myself. I am representing here. We have the line that just feels like we're being trolled over here. And what have we to do with Englishmen? They are divided from our continent. Just going, whoa, wow, that was a slap in the face. So we've got that. We've got stuff that feels very, very current to British politics at the moment. I highly scorn to take a bribe. I think you scorn indeed to have it known. It's just at the time of recording, that's pretty much that's very current. We've got these people, and it starts off so civilized, and it slowly dissolves and gets nastier and nastier. And of course, we've also got the Empress turning up, Empress Isabella, and we're all sitting here going, "Hang on, the English side of this contingent. Who's related to which potential? Is anyone related to a king? Which king's going on here? Who? And we're really not sure. I don't think we've properly unpacked how it fits in with sort of, shall we say, the English history play, and what precisely is going on here. So who is whom and etc. Because I don't think Richard's just a duke, It's the Edward who I don't know if we've had much of a reference to who is related directly. I think that may be why we're getting confused. But I don't know if we've been given enough data. I'll go to Alan, then Lynn.
Well, one, Cornwall is one of the real royal dukedoms, but the other thought is, as with many of these quotes history plays, it's history, Jim, but not as we know it.
Yeah, Lynn.
Yeah, I mean, this is an early modern English spin on this, but it's kind of funny that they are talking about the English king doesn't really, the island. It's an island. It's separated from Europe. The Plantagenets probably didn't think of themselves at this point as primarily English kings. They had significant holdings on the continent. They probably thought of themselves as, dukes of Normandy and of Aquitaine, with England as on the side. But from the English point of view, a couple hundred years later, they're English kings with continental interests rather than vice versa. So I laugh a little bit. But okay, I'm confused. And I'm not sure it even matters that I can't, that one can't follow. But it seems like nobody in the convocation of electors here really wants Alphonsus to be the Holy Roman Emperor. He's a bad person. And he's made lots of enemies. So I think like nobody here really wants him, but they also end up by concluding we have to sort of placate the other top contender, Richard of Cornwall. So who are these the electors thinking is going to replace Alphonsus? Who's their candidate?
Well, it doesn't seem that there's a lot of vested interests that are casing the joint. I don't think anyone's really nailed their colours to the mast. Even people who in theory pushing one side, they're sort of going, well, maybe they could do it together. And that sort of power sharing arrangement that's inevitably going to be a total disaster. So it's all sorts of questions about, I don't think actually that it matters who they want. I think all that matters is the chaos. I think dramatically anyway. Lois.
That's probably right. But on the other hand, this play would have been quite topical. I would imagine. It depends a bit when it's published. But James I's daughter married an elector, the Elector Palatine of the Holy Roman Empire, and he was one of the people that could elect the emperor, and it seems that Bohemia is the one that is picked to be the kind of co-emperor along with Alphonsus, and of course this is what started the 30 Years' War. Was the Palatine elector accepting the crown of Bohemia in 1618, and then the sort of rejected ruler who was Spaniard, became in fact the emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, and that this produced the appalling 30 Years' War. So there must surely be some kind of topicality here. Otherwise, why would anybody care about the electors anyway? In an English audience, who cares how they elect the Holy Roman Emperor?
Because they have Richard and Edward in it as well.
Yeah.
Stunt casting, that's what it is. It does nail down to the question of precisely when the play originally turns up. It certainly is in existence later on when all of those topical things might be in play, but we don't know precisely when it starts because people disagree on that point. Elizabeth and Sarah.
Yeah, I was just saying, I am enjoying the play so far. I just feel like it's very historically rich. And it's I'm not sure how much of a history play it is, because they can take liberties and they can take license, and the playwright can take poetic license. But I'm quite enjoying it to begin with. I would like the intrigue. I think it's very much full of intrigue, and but none of the characters seem to really, for me, stand out yet. And I'm waiting for someone to kill someone.
You had it.
Yeah, we had the first scene where we really got into Alphonsus. We know who Alphonsus is, and then we have this scene with so many people, and I think that's a question about when it comes to actually doing it. Is that it's quite hard for us to differentiate who anyone is in this context. But if you're doing it in a space with lots of people, the different costumes, the different performances, it might be tighter, but then it might not. It may just be that I'm just being nicer about the text than I should be. But yeah, it's a totally different vibe. We've gone from this very small scene to this very big scene, and the amount of noise that's generated. But at least at the end of the big scene, we have something that ties back to the first scene as well. So we are tying those things in. Sarah, then Helen.
Yes, I wanted to talk about the end of that scene because we go from having this kind of crowd of all these different people with all their different agendas, and then it comes right down to this one person who has nothing to do with any of that. And I'm wondering if Alexander is actually going to turn out to be the protagonist of this play. And this is going to be because, you know, and his final line, "And live in hell until I take revenge." So are we into, is this going to be like a revenge tragedy where he is actually, it's not Alphonsus who's the protagonist of this story, it's him. And this is going to be his personal journey, which is just starting off now. But I was really intrigued by this whole thing that he said about how he can't, unless I've misunderstood this, he can't draw his weapon at anything, even a dog, until he's been boxed about the ears and given a sword. And I'm like, well, that's weird. And I'm wondering if this is going to be one of those strange plots where someone's going to box him round the ears because he's done something wrong or whatever, and that's going to be like, I don't know. I mean, he's going to be taking revenge on Alphonsus, isn't he? So maybe it's all going to be a bit like Oedipus, and something's going to happen whereby someone boxes him, or Alphonsus boxes him on the ears, and then that in turn allows him to then kill him or whatever. It's all going to be like a bit kind of woo-woo with the fates, and he's going to end up... But I don't quite understand why he's not allowed to draw his sword as yet.
I don't know if he's literally not allowed. I think it's a generational experience thing. I think it's not quite as literal as you're taking it.
Okay.
I don't know if Lois has a thought on that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the customs in Germany at this period. I mean, I know, for example, that in Die Meistersinger, Hans Sachs gives his apprentice a box on the ear and makes him a journeyman. It's a kind of promotion thing. And this sounds, you know, as if he's probably just saying you have to wait until somebody, it might even refer to knighthood. I mean, being girded with a sword and boxed on the ears, it's sort of like saying being banged on the shoulder, you know. I don't know. I mean, it certainly could be a sarcastic way of describing a custom. And I have no idea whether in Germany you really did have to wait that long before you could wear a sword. I mean, wearing a sword was the privilege of a gentleman, essentially.
So we're not sure. It might be as literal as that. It might not be. Because of course it's just that thing he's calling about revenge, and, you know, the people won't listen to him because he's just a boy.
Yeah, and it just seemed like a really weird thing to be so oddly specific about when we're getting his big "I am going to take revenge" speech. That was all. I just wanted to flag it up, really. It's just weird.
But you're right. I really love the point about, you know, revenge tragedy and heading in this sort of direction. Is what is this play doing? We will find out more. Helen.
Yeah, I think it is part of the knighthood ceremony. You'll get cuffed across the ear. They say, "Bear this blow and never bear another," and wrap your sword round you. That's fairly standard, and I think it goes across quite a number of different European knighthood ceremonies. My point was, however, I did want to know how old Alexander was. I mean, he says he may have to wait till he's 40 to be knighted, but I think that may be exaggeration. I think he's probably 20-ish, I don't know. Maybe younger.
He's a page.
The thing that I was interested in was that we've had one female character so far who is the only person in this entire play to date who one might call admirable. From our point of view. I mean, from their point of view, she is a weak and feeble woman. And not only that, she has no grasp on realpolitik or that everybody should be out for their own ends. But nevertheless, from our point of view,
yep. She gets a really nice sort of, "Hi, I've got my my audition speech ready," ta-da, and then, you know, token bit of dialogue, and then she's gone. So that there is actually something quite interesting about the way that's structured. Eric, and then we'll move on to Act 2.
Yeah, I was just amused by sort of Bohemia going, "Oh yes, we must elect someone to be in charge," you know. challenge, whatever. And then sort of when people go, oh, but you are the most, interesting, most, and he's like, oh, I cannot, I must accept this honor if you so impose it. And it's like sort of that very sort of slimy politician kind of thing.
Okay, we are going to dive into the wonderful world of Act 2. Once again, we have a reasonably busy scene in terms of number of people potentially on stage. Don't know how many of them actually say anything. But we have the entrance for what is labelled here as Act 2, Scene 1. Enter Alphonsus, Richard, Earl of Cornwall, Mentz, Prince Edward, Bohemia, Collen, and Brandenburg attendants and pages with a sword.
Behold, here come the princes hand in hand, pleased highly with the sentence, as it seems.
Princes and pillars of the monarchy, we do admire your wisdoms in this cause, and do accept the King of Bohemia as worthy partner in the government. Alas, my lords, I flatly now confess I was alone too weak to underprop so great a burden as the Roman Empire, and hope to make you all admire the course that we intend in this conjunction.
And I was called from England with consent of all the 7 electors to this place. Yourselves best know who wrote for me to come. 'Twas no ambition moved me to the journey, but pity of your half-declining state, which being likely now to be repaired by the united force of these 2 kings, I rest content to see you satisfied.
Brave Earl, wonder of princely patience. I hope your grace will not misthink of me, who for your good and for the empire's best bethought this means to set the world at peace.
No doubt this means might have been thought upon, although your holiness had died in prison.
Peace, peace, young prince, you want experience. Your uncle knows what cares accompany and wait upon the crowns of mightiest kings, and glad he is that he hath shaked it off.
Hearken your ear, my lord, hear me one word, although it were more than 1,000,000, which these 2 kings bestowed upon your grace. Mine uncle Richard's 1,000,000 saved your life.
You were best to say your uncle bribed me then.
I do but say my uncle saved your life. You know, Count Mansfield, your fellow prisoner, was by the Duke of Braunschweig put to death.
You are a child, my lord. Your words are wind.
You are a fox, my lord, and past a child.
My lord of Cornwall, your great forwardness crossing the seas with aid of Englishmen is more than we can say we can any way requite, but this your admirable patience in being pleased with our election deserves far more than thanks can satisfy. In anything command the emperors who live to honor Richard, Earl of Cornwall.
Our deeds shall make our protestations good. Meanwhile, brave princes, let us leave this place, and solace us with joy of this accord.
And they exit. So, short little scene. We get to meet Richard and Edward. Thoughts in the room on where we are. Alphonsus, of course, going, telling everyone that he wouldn't have wanted to take the throne himself. It would have been too much. Got a bit of a cough. So all humility. I'm sure he was entirely sincere about that statement. Lois.
Yeah, and Richard behaves in a very sensible and possibly ironic way in talking to them. But anyway, like a statesman, whereas Edward is doing the typical blunt English thing of telling it how it is.
Yes. Subtle guy there.
Yeah.
Subtle guy. Yeah. Other thoughts? Alan?
Yeah, I mean, Richard's been dragged there under false pretences when he'd far sooner have been at a dinner with his old chums from the Daily Tory Graph.
Yes. Perhaps a little early in history for that. But anyway, Helen then.
No, it's about their time.
No. Richard had an absolutely cast iron job offer. And they're not even going to pay his expenses. I mean, he bribed all the right people and he got a job offer, and it was firm. It wasn't a conditional, it was an offer. And he accepted it.
Lois.
Yeah, and he wouldn't want to be in London at his club. He would want to be in Palestine cutting more throats. I mean, they've said this earlier. It's very like Richard the Lionhearted, though he doesn't appear to be Richard the Lionhearted.
No, it's very confusing because you keep wanting to make them you keep wanting them to be kings, but neither of them are kings. They might be kings at some point, but they're not. Anyway, Eric.
I was just going to say that it's interesting how what's it called not Alphonsus, Bohemia kind of goes, now you came here with the aid of Englishmen, therefore I wasn't sure if that meant sort of military strength or if that means something else, because I understood that basically he's coming over to threaten them into giving him the throne, but I'm not entirely sure if that's just me.
Helen, did you wave or did I imagine that?
Yeah, I think I would probably did, but my imagination's run out here. The king who is on the English throne at present, I think I've worked out, is Henry III, because he's having trouble with the Earl of Leicester and the barons, which is the Montfort rebellion. So that is Henry III, which makes sense.
Because it has to follow on from King John, because we've got King John's daughter.
And Richard of Cornwall was King John's son. And a lot of this is actually history. It isn't just completely invented.
But the reign of Henry III is one of those reigns which basically nobody knows anything about. So it's falling down that sort of gap in our general knowledge. So it's and it's also European history, which as we all know, we are divided from our continent, and have no interest in any of that. Anyway, I'm going to move on. That was all ironic. Act 2, Scene 2. Enter Isabella, the Empress. Hedwig, the Duke of Saxon's daughter, apparelled like Fortune, drawn on a globe, with a cup in her hand, wherein are bay leaves, whereupon are written the lots. This is turning very Eurovision Song Contest at the moment. Mix between drawing, football teams and things for World Cups. A train of ladies following with music, and the princes.
Congratulate this unexpected peace, this glorious league confirmed against all hope. Joyful Isabella doth present this show of fortune's triumph, as the custom is at coronations of our emperors. If therefore every party be well pleased and stand content with this arbitrament, then deign to do as your progenitors and draw in sequence lots for offices.
This is an order here in Germany for princes to disport themselves withal. In sign their hearts so firmly are conjoined that they will bear all fortunes equally. And that the world may know I scorn no state or course of life to do the empire good, I take my chance.
And draws a lot.
My fortune is to be the forester.
If we want venison, either red or fallow, wild boar or bear, you must be fined, my lord.
The emperor's taster, aye.
Your majesty hath been tasted too so oft that you have need of small instructions.
I am the boar. Sister, what's my charge?
Tired like a carter and a clownish boor to bring a load of wood into the kitchen. Now for myself. Faith, I am chambermaid. I know my charge. Proceed unto the next.
Prince Edward standeth melancholy still. Please it your grace, my lord, to draw your lot?
Nephew, you must be solemn with the sad, and give to mirth in sportful company. The German princes, when they will be lusty, shake off all cares and clowns, and they are fellows.
Sweetheart, I do not know the country guys, yet will be glad to learn of all fashions. Since I am next, good fortune be my guide.
And he draws a lot. Everyone's been drawing lots, by the way.
A most ingenuous countenance hath this prince, worthy to be the King of England's heir.
Be it no disparagement to you, my lords, I am your emperor.
Oh, sound trumpets! God save the emperor!
The world could never worse have fitted me. I am not old enough to be the cook.
If you be cook, there is no remedy, but you must dress one mess of meat yourself.
I am physician.
And reading in for Trier.
I am secretary.
I am the jester.
Oh, excellent. Is your holiness the vice? Fortune hath fitted you in faith, my lord. You'll play the ambidexter cunningly.
Your highness is too bitter in your jests.
Come hither, Alexander, to comfort thee after the death of thy beloved father, whose life was dear unto his emperor. Thou shalt make one in this solemnity. Yet ere thou draw, myself will honour thee, and as the custom is, make thee a man. Stand stiff, sir boy. Now comest thou to thy trial. Take this and that, and therewithal this sword.
And following the discussion from earlier, he gives Alexander a box on the ear or two. Actually, we'll just read on a little bit more before we actually pause.
If while thou live thou ever take the like of me or any man, I here pronounce thou art a schlem, otherwise a man. Now draw thy lot, and fortune be thy speed.
Uncle, I pray, why did he box the fellow, foul lubber as he is, to take such blows?
Thus do the princes make their pages men.
But that is strange to make a man with blows. We say in England that he is a man, that like a man dare meet his enemy. And in my judgment, 'tis the sounder trial.
Fortune hath made me marshal of the triumphs.
Now what remains?
That fortune draw her lot.
And Hedewick draws, opens it, and gives it to the Empress to read.
Sound trumpets. Fortune is your empress.
This happens right, for fortune will be queen. Now, emperor, you must unmask her face and tell us how you like your empress. In my opinion, England breeds no fairer.
And Edward unmasks her, but we'll find out what Edward says in a minute, because I think we should unpack this ritual a little bit. This is, I mean, someone was saying in the chat, you know, it's very court masky, isn't it? It's this sort of all these drawing of lots. It has that sort of quality of the other sort of earlier disguisings and activities where you upset the social order by giving different roles to different people in higher or lower statuses. And yeah, it's weird, but then you know it's complicated by the way that Edward and Richard are sort of going. They have these funny rituals, these Johnny foreigners, don't they? And you're sort of going, yeah, that makes that a little more problematic, but never mind. So yeah, it's an odd little scene. Thoughts from the room so far? Who wants to leap in? Lynn.
Yeah, the whole boxing of the ear things. I mean, isn't the laying of the sword on the shoulder kind of the equivalent? I could hurt you, but I choose not to. This is a ceremonial blow, right? So, but of course they don't see that. But yeah, so this game of drawing lots, and the emperor's gonna pretend to be the cook, and Edward is gonna pretend to be the emperor. I mean, it's a little heavy-handed. Oh, Fortune is actually the Empress. She's the one that's actually in charge of everything. So, I mean, the metaphor is a little ham-fisted, but I kind of like it anyway.
And is it rigged? Is it rigged?
Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth.
You took the words right out of my mouth, Rob. I was there kind of going, I was just nodding along with Lynn, who said it was a bit heavy-handed. And then I was also thinking that this is a bit too much of a likely story, that the right people would get the right lots.
Lois, were you waving?
Yeah, I mean, it is. I think it is deliberately ironic the way that whether it's rigged or not, and I think it must be rigged that Edward and Hedewick end up paired off like this. Hasn't he come there with this in mind?
And I also just like the Alphonsus does make Alexander a man so that Alexander can be in a position to enact his revenge.
Oh yeah.
So there's a nice irony being played here. I don't know if that's where the play's going, but I'm just saying it does seem that there's an awful lot of signposting going on here. But maybe they'll become friends and run a I don't know, a small garden centre somewhere outside of Trieste or something. I don't know. Sarah.
This is very random and irrelevant, but I just like the detail in the stage directions about the fact that the lots were written on bay leaves. That pleased me enormously for some reason.
Yeah, we get pleasure where we can find it. No, there's lots of little details at the beginning. A fortune drawn on a globe. So I'm wondering if there is some crossover between this and either court mask or some the materials from other civic events where hey, we've got this lovely globe you can balance on. We can bring it in on our alternate Thursdays. You can for the show. Yeah, that's fine. We're midway through a long scene, so I think we should dive back into it before we get a little out of it. So Edward has unmasked Hedwig. So let's find out what happens after that.
Hedwig, the Duke of Saxon's daughter, young Prince of England, you are bravely matched.
Tell me, sweet aunt, is that the Saxon princess whose beauty's fame made Edward cross the seas?
Nephew, it is. Hath fame been prodigal or oversparing in the princess' praise?
Fame, I accuse thee. Thou didst niggardize and faintly sound my love's perfections. Great Lady Fortune and fair Empress, whom chance this day hath thrown into my arm, more welcome than the Roman Empress.
And Edward kisses her.
Apologies for my German. Say dort, das ist hier kein Gebrannt. Mein Gott, ist das der Englishman hier? Das Dick.
What meanest this? Why chafes my Empress?
Now by my troth, I did expect this jest. Prince Edward used his country fashion.
I am an Englishman. Why should I not?
Why, nephew Edward, here in Germany, to kiss a maid, a fault intolerable.
And why should not German maids be kissed as well as others?
Nephew, because you did not know the fashion and want the language to excuse yourself. I'll be your spokesman to your Empress.
Excuse it thus. I like the first so well that tell her she shall chide me twice as much for such another. Nay, tell her more than so. I'll double kiss on kiss and give her leave to chide and brawl and cry 10,000 das dich, and make her weary of her fretting humor, ere I be weary of my kissing vein. Das dich. Ah, Jungfrau, angry for a kiss.
Nephew, she thinks you mock her in your mirth.
I think the princess makes a scorn of me. If any do, I'll prove it with my sword. That English courtship leaves it from the world.
The pleasantest accident that I have seen.
Methinks the prince is chafed as well as she.
Not a Fräulein.
Das dich. Milt ich am Kind zu Schanden geackt werden.
Das dich. I have kissed as good as you. Pray, uncle, tell her if she mislikes the kiss, I'll take it off again with such another.
Liebe Fräulein, nimm es all für gut. Es ist nicht English-Manier und gebracht.
Gnaden weißt wohl, es ist mir ein groß Schande.
Good aunt, teach me so much Dutch as to ask her pardon.
Say so, gnädige Fräulein, vergebet mir's, ich will's nimmer mehr tun. Then kiss her hand 3 times. Oops, say Deutsch.
Ich will's nimmer mehr tun. If I understand it right, that's as much to say as I'll do no more.
True, nephew.
Nay, aunt, pardon me, I pray. I hope to kiss her many thousand times, and I shall go to her like a great boy. And shall I go to her like a great boy and say, I will do so no more?
I pray, cousin, say as I tell you.
Gnädiges Fräulein, vergebet mir's, ich will's nimmer mehr tun.
Bewahr, kein Schand.
Gnädige Hochgeborene, Fürst und Herr. Oh, there's more. One ich konnte, so will English sprechen, ich wollt ever gnaden. Fürwahr ein Filz geben, ich hoffe, aber ich soll einmal so will lernen, dass die mich western soll.
What says she?
Oh, excellent. Young prince, look to yourself. She swears she'll learn some English for your sake, to make you understand her when she chides.
I'll teach her English, she shall teach me Deutsch. Gnädiges Fräulein, etc.
It's a great pity that the Duke of Saxon is absent at this joyful accident. I see no reason if his grace were here, but that the marriage might be solemnized. I think the Prince of Wales were well content.
I left sweet England to no other end, and though the prince her father be not here, this royal presence knows his mind in this.
Since you do come so roundly to the purpose, 'tis time for me to speak. The maid is mine, given freely by her father unto me, and to the end these broils may have an end, I give the father's interest and mine own unto my nephew, Edward, Prince of Wales.
A jewel of incomparable price your majesty hath here bestowed on me. How shall I ask her if she be content?
Say thus, ist ihr Gnaden wohl heimit zufrieden?
Ist euer Gnaden wohl hiermit zufrieden?
Was hier ihr Deliktigkeit, das will mein Vater, und was mein Vater will, damit muss ich zufrieden sein.
It is enough. she doth confirm the match. We will dispatch a post unto her father. On Sunday shall the revels and the wedding be both solemnized with mutual joy. Sound trumpets! Each one look unto his charge for preparation of the festivals.
And they exit. Please, could you direct me to the nearest tourist information centre, please? So we have this lengthy sequence in a language, perhaps, part of which the point is not to understand things and to have Edward basically just saying the same phrase again and again. Edward doing a massive faux pas of going in and kissing her and trying to repair the damage from his impropriety. Yes, but it's all fine in the end. Sausage, egg and chips, please. Lois.
Yeah. Yes, quackity quack quack indeed. This is actually a reasonably good German, and it's German and not Dutch, even though they keep calling it Dutch or Deutsch. And it's mostly because there are an awful lot of typos in it, but one could in fact turn that into pretty accurate German. I find it interesting that the playwright knew this much German, but again, this probably has to do with the Elector Palatine and all these Germans coming to England in 1613. And then I don't know if this this author had been in their court or just what, or whether people were actually learning German. But I mean, but it does actually make sense.
Yes, I mean there are no typos. They're authentic typos if there are.
Yeah,
typos.
I'm sure they are. The printer couldn't read German. Yeah.
Yes, I suspect that we would need to sit down and work on something slightly more practical for future use. Sarah.
I was running it through, obviously, living out in Germany and not being very good at German at all. I have a quite good English to German dictionary on my desktop that I was running the lines through as we were going along, and it all translated because it could pick up the typo, well, the early modern typos, and it all translated pretty well, actually. But it kind of made it really. I don't know. It kind of left me with a slightly distressed frame of mind, because she's really not very happy. You know, there's this kind of ho, let's all like mock the German, and but as Lois said, the German is actually very, very understandable. It's it's quite easy to translate, and she's really not very happy. She does not like this at all. And when Alphonsus says at the end, it is enough, she doth confirm the match, she's basically just said, well, I don't really have any choice in this matter.
Like, she said whatever everybody else says, really. Yeah,
exactly. It's I'm going to have to do what I'm told, and so therefore what it is what it is. But you know, it's I don't know, it's kind of slightly it made me slightly uncomfortable, actually, but I think that's intentional on the part of the playwright. It was actually, it made it like it gave an extra layer to the scene that was made it quite dark and creepy.
Yes, because of course what we don't have in this reading is intention, and especially when we haven't got a clue what we're actually reading. So that's really quite important for actual production. Lois.
Yeah, I mean, I think it actually is meant to be mainly comic, and partly laughs at her expense, and it is terribly like another scene that we can't talk about here that plays the same sort of game. Blunt Englishman, kissing puritanically.
No idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, quite.
Nothing springs to mind.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have a reasonable chunket of scene left to go, which is perhaps more up our street, as it were, because left on stage when everybody else has exited is Alphonsus and Alexander, now a man.
Come hither, Alexander, thy father's joy. If tears and sighs and deep-fetched deadly groans could serve to avert inexorable fate, divine Lorenzo, whom in life my heart in death my soul and better art adores, had to thy comfort and his prince's honour survived, and drawn this day this breath of life.
Prince Caesar, prostrate, on my bended knee, I thank your majesty for all favours shown to my deceased father and myself. I must confess, I spend the bootless tears, yet cannot bridle nature. I must weep, or heart will break with burden of my thoughts. Nor am I yet so young or fond withal, causeless to spend my gall and fret my heart. 'Tis not that he is dead, for all must die, but that I live to hear his life's reproach. O sacred emperor, these ears have heard what no son's ears can unrevenged hear. The princes, all of them, but especially the Prince-elect Archbishop of Cologne, reviled him by the names of murderer, arch-villain, robber of the empire's frame, and Caesar's tutor in all wickedness, and with a general voice applause to his death as for the special good to Christendom.
Have they not reason to applaud the deed which they themselves have plotted? Ah, my boy, thou art too young to dive into their drifts.
Yet old enough, I hope, to be revenged.
What wilt thou do? Or whither wilt thou run?
Headlong, to bring them death, then die myself.
At first, hear the reason why I do mistrust them.
They had no reason for my father's death, and I scorn reason till they all be dead.
Thou wilt not scorn my counsel in revenge.
My rage admits no counsel but revenge.
First let me tell thee whom I do mistrust.
Your Highness said you did mistrust them all.
Yea, Alexander, all of them, and more than all, my most especial, nearest, dearest friends.
All's one to me. For know thou, Emperor, were it thy father's brother or thine Empress, ye wert thyself that did conspire his death. This fatal hand should take away thy life.
Spoke like a son, worthy so dear a father. Be still and hearken. I will tell thee all. The Duke of Saxon...
Oh, I thought no less.
Suppress thy choler, hearken to the rest. Saxon, I say, so wrought with flattering Mentz with Bohemia, Trier and Brandenburg, for Collen and the Palsgrave of the Rhine were principals with Saxon in the plot, that in a general meeting to that purpose, the 7 selected emperor's electors most heinously concluded of the murder. The reason why they doomed him unto death was his deep wisdom and sound policy, knowing, while he did live, my state was firm. He being dead, my hope must die with him. Now, Alexander, will we be revenged upon this wicked whore of Babylon, this hideous monster with the 7-fold head? We must with cunning level at the heart, which pierced and perished, all the body dies. Or strike we off the heads by one and one. Behoveth us to use dexterity, lest she do trample us under her feet and triumph in our honour's overthrow.
Mad and amazed to hear this tragic doom, I do subscribe unto your sound advice.
Then hear the rest. These 7 gave but the sentence. A nearer hand put it in execution. And, but I loved Lorenzo as my life. I never would betray my dearest wife.
What? Watch the Empress accessory too.
What cannot kindred do? Her brother Richard, hoping thereby to be an emperor, gave her a dram that sent him to his grave.
Oh, my poor father! Wert thou such an eyesore that 9, the greatest princes of the earth, must be confederate in thy tragedy? But why do I respect their mightiness, who did not once respect my father's life? Your Majesty may take it as you please. I'll be revenged upon your Empress, on English Richard, Saxon and the Palsgrave, on Beam, Cologne, Mentz, Trier and Brandenburg, if that the Pope of Rome himself were one in this confederacy. Undaunted I, amidst the college of his cardinals, would press and stab him in St. Peter's chair, though plaid in all his pontificalibus.
Why, Alexander, dost thou speak to me as if thou didst mistrust my forwardness? No, thou shalt know my love to him was such, and in my heart I have prescribed them all that had to do in this conspiracy. The bands of wedlock shall not serve her turn. Her fatal lot is cast among the rest, and, to conclude, my soul doth live in hell till I have set my foot upon their necks that gave this spur of sorrow to my heart. But with advice it must be managed, not with a headlong rage as thou intend'st, nor in a moment can it be performed. This work requires long time, dissembling looks, commixed with undermining actions, watching advantages to execute. Our foes are mighty, and their number great. It therefore follows that our stratagems must branch forth into manifold deceits, endless devices, bottomless conclusions.
What by your Majesty is prescribed to me, that will I execute or die the death. I am content to suck my sorrows up, and with dull patience will attend the time, gaping for every opportunity that may present the least occasion, although each minute multiply mine anguish, and to my view present 1,000 forms of senseless bodies in my father's shape, yelling with open throat for just revenge.
Content thyself. He shall not cry in vain. I have already plotted Richard's death.
That hath my father's sacred ghost inspired. Tell me, shall I stab him suddenly? The time seems long till I be set a work.
Thou knowest, in gripping at our lots today, it was Prince Richard's lot to be the boar, so that his office is to drive the cart and bring a load of wood into the kitchen.
Oh, excellent! Your grace being forester, as in the thicket he doth load the cart, may shoot him dead, as if he were a deer.
No, Alexander, that device were shallow. Thus it must be. There are 2 very boars appointed for to help him in the wood. These must be bribed, or cunningly seduced, instead of helping him, to murder him.
Verbum satis sapienti. It is enough. Fortune hath made me marshal of the sports. I hope to marshal them the devil's feast. Plot you the rest. This will I execute. Deutsch boars as Townsend shelms and gold doth tempt them.
'Tis right. About it then, but cunningly.
Else let me lose that good opinion which by your highness I desire to hold. By letters, which I'll strew within the wood, I'll undermine the boars to murder him. Nor shall they know who set them so a work. Like a familiar will I fly about, and nimbly haunt their ghosts in every nook.
Exit Alexander to do some fly posting for murderers. Remains Alphonsus.
This one nail helps to drive the other out. I slew the father and bewitched the son with power of words to be the instrument to rid my foes with danger of his life. How easily can subtle age entice such credulous young novices to their death? Huge wonders will Alphonsus bring to pass by the mad mind of this enraged boy. Even they which think themselves my greatest friends shall fall by this deceit. Yea, my arch enemies shall turn to be my chief confederates. My solitary walks may breed suspect. I'll therefore give myself to company, as I intended nothing but these sports, yet hope to send most actors in this pageant to revel it with Rudimant in hell.
Exit Alphonsus. So, yeah, you can just see the little fly posts that Alexander's just leaving up, you know. Are you capable of committing murder? Fabulous gold can be won. Call 0891. I just love Alexander, you know. You're going to shoot him? No. And yeah, it's this co-opting, and of course we're just, I think we all picked up on this, of the irony alert, just going, oh, if wert thyself that did conspire his death, I'd kill you. And then Alphonsus basically says, yeah, you want to know who killed him? Everybody.
Yes.
Except me.
Except me. It's literally, he implicates, I don't think there's anyone in the cast list he hasn't implicated that we've met so far in the play.
Hedwig, not Hedwig.
Oh, not Hedwig. Oh, well.
Lovers, yeah. Edward and Hedwig, yeah.
Yeah. Well, never mind. Eric, then Lois.
No, what I was going to say was that I was so taken in by Sarah's reading of, like, Revel with Radamant in Hell, I was expecting a mwah at the end of it. It just sort of, it gets so dark. So, I mean, okay, it starts off with a murder, but then, like, wow, yeah.
Yeah, Alphonsus is definitely the kind of evil dude you like to be alone on stage with. You know, it's fun. It's fun times. Lois.
Yeah, I think this is an early work by Agatha Christie. I mean, it's got that whole framework, you know, of all these people dressed up to play different roles during the day. And we've got one already who's going to die in his costume, you know, through that. I mean, it's the perfect setup for a kind of golden age detective novel.
Yeah, except we have been told who the murderer is in advance. That doesn't have that's more a Columbo thing.
Yeah.
It's the first 5 minutes of Columbo. I'm expecting someone in a dirty Mac to turn up and starts just asking one more thing. Because you know we can't see this going horribly wrong at all. I'm looking forward to it going horribly wrong as we go forward. We are into extra time, so it's time to go around the room for final thoughts about what to do with this play in performance. At the moment, it has a certain challenge in the sense that we've got a very large cast for a lot of the play, but who do not have an awful lot to do, and they're very difficult to reduce. But I'm not sure, outside of everyone we've now met, there are that many additional characters to come. So it's a biggish cast, but it's not actually excessive. And hopefully, in terms of saying to actors, here is a decent part, it's not going to just be Alphonsus doing massive speeches. That there is a bit more balance to be had. But I have to say I'm kind of enjoying it. But people may disagree, or thoughts about how you want to see it staged and what to do with it, because there's lots of little options. Okay, we're only a third of the way through the text, but let's see where we are. Elizabeth, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, it's really interesting how you say how it would be staged, because I went to see something last week that really reminded me of this, that this play really reminded me of. It's a duck play, so I'm not going to mention it. I'm enjoying it. Alphonsus is really standing out, now. But there was a murder in the beginning that I completely missed, apparently. That was right off the bat. But I'm really enjoying it. What I like about it the most is the dynamics in the text between a lot of people and then only a few people. I think the play really gets that right. Yeah, that's what I'm enjoying so far.
There's a lot of detail in those scenes with lots of people, and I think there's a lot to be drawn out of it. And I think that's going to be. And it's also a question of where that then goes further down the line. And we've got visual stuff. We've got his sort of mask turns up in Act 2. So there's all sorts of potential. If you want spectacle, you can have spectacle as well. You want small hand closed scenes with very few people, you can have that. Helen, any final thoughts?
I love it. I think it's very, very modern. I mean, I can put names to an awful lot of these people in various, both on the right and the left, in Europe and in America. I mean, things are really happening here. Lies are being told. I think it's stunningly. It's so far so brilliant. I had quite a bit of difficulty placing it, and I'm going to be doing an awful lot of Googling to find out exactly where to put this with all the other English plays. But there's a tremendous number of English history references, which I think would have actually put it in a sensible place for the early modern audience.
Briony, you haven't had a lot to say today, so you can take up 5 minutes if you wish.
I think this is the longest that I've had away from this group and then coming back, and I don't know if my brain's just struggled a bit today, but yeah, I felt a little bit lost at times, but not, I don't know, I've still enjoyed it somehow. There's definitely, I mean, like that, I followed I did catch that first murder, and I loved it, and I loved how quick it was. There's also this feel to it that it's very, I don't know, it's kind of leaning into the stereotype of the boorish English, like anti-foreign stuff. And I kind of like that because it makes the stuff that could be quite problematic a bit more satirical, in just, that we're really digging into how rubbish the English can be at adapting to other cultures and learning other people's languages and things like that. I mean, the way they kept referring to the language as Dutch, like, that's it's Dutch, Deutsch, something like that. Yeah, it's just that, like I say, quite boorish. And I think somebody said ham-fisted earlier as well. It is, and I like that element of it. So it's fun, and I hope that I have more to say tomorrow. Basically,
you definitely have more to say tomorrow. I try to. There's a yin yang thing that in theory happens. It is a bit of a problem because basically most of the text has been Alphonsus and either Alexander or Lorenzo, and then it's just sort of everything else is just scattergun.
That wasn't a criticism on your casting at all, because I know I've just been like, in terms of the discussions, because today I've just kind of sat back and listened to what other people were saying and tried to get back into this mindset, I guess.
Eric, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just like, the whole thing started with the murder, as we know, and now we're plotting for more murder, and they're probably going, oh, we're also bloodthirsty, aren't we? Because we're enjoying this, but also kind of what I realized was that moment that Sarah described as sort of very uncomfortable. The sort of young woman going, sure, whatever you want, basically, kind of nod and smile. Please don't kill me. It's kind of, I mean, Hedewick. Yeah, in case you missed that. And it's still kind of modern, very, very modern. If you think about like all the, sort of a woman walking home at night kind of, or, a woman being cornered at a party by two guys or even just one guy. It's like, let me go kind of thing. I mean, even if you don't understand the German, it could be played in that way with the subtext. Because I don't speak a word of German, but yes, now that it has been explained, it makes a lot more sense.
Yes, the group don't get any helpful things like glosses at this stage of the proceedings. Future explorations, they will. We go kinder or just more weak-willed as we go on. Sarah, any final thoughts?
Basically everything that Helen said. I love it so far. I drew the lucky lot today. I got to play Alphonsus. He's brilliant. He's great fun to play. You know, he's the fox and the lion combined, and I really enjoyed reading him. And yeah, I'm just really looking forward to seeing where this goes. I hope it does turn into a kind of super revengey tragedy in which Alexander, basically the scales fall from his eyes and he grows into knowledge and he becomes all bitter and twisted and runs Alphonsus through. I have no idea if any of this is going to happen, but that's kind of what I'm hoping for, which is perhaps a little bit disturbing, but I don't know. It's just been set up so well with the characterization, really deft plotting. Structurally, it's really tight, and I just can't wait to see how it develops.
I hope that he becomes bitter and twisted. It's the thing, and it's not. I don't think it's going to be much of a spoiler to say that more deaths are available later in the narrative. So I don't think you're not going to have to wait too long for that to be fulfilled. Lois, any final thoughts?
Yeah, well, I'm enjoying this. I don't think I ever read this, even 50 years ago. So it's a pleasure to watch it unfold. And it's quite interesting that clearly the author, likes to show that he or she, presumably he knew German, knew something about German customs. And yes, I'll be interested in what Helen's going to find out, because I'm not going to do the Google search, but just how England does connect with Germany in this period. You note that Lorenzo and his son are both Spanish. At least I assume they are. They're de Toledo. And I don't know whether, Alphonsus could well be Spanish too, because of the way the Holy Roman Empire operated. I'm not really sure, because again, I really don't know the history of the Holy Roman Empire. But that might be, given that the stereotyping of both the Spaniards and the Italians is always so sinister, that might also account for the way this thing operates, with the plain, blunt, honest Englishmen, and then the rather devious Germans, it seems to me, and then the Machiavellian Spaniards, if that is what they are. Anyway, it's extremely interesting.
Alan, any final thoughts?
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting one. It's moving at a heck of a pace. It would be an interesting one to stage. Interesting decision for the director and cast to make in terms of how far you played it as an analogy of modern politics. The one point on the German thing is that, of course, Germany did not exist as anything other than a confederacy of princedoms or dukedoms at this time, and didn't until the mid-19th century. And I've always understood the Deutsch-Dutch thing as being a somewhat flexible interpretation anyway. One thing I found interesting is we've only seen 2 female characters so far, and both of them have been quite strong, sassy roles. Hedewick is rather more subject to the whims of the higher politics of it. But neither of them are sort of shy and retiring violets, effectively.
And we'll see what additional roles we get further on. Who is Lynn? Any final thoughts?
Yes, I'm enjoying it too. I pretty much always am drawn in by the intersection of the personal and the political. That is just an interest of mine. So the fact that temperament and moral composition of individual humans, of individual flawed humans, has huge political implications is just always fascinating to me. So Alphonsus is a completely amoral, self-serving, power-hungry person. And here he is in this position of power. If he were a different kind of person, the political situation would be very different. And even the kind of supporting characters, Edward and Alexander, I'm beginning to see as sort of versions of each other. These young, kind of at least sort of men with some moral integrity, some kind of ethical standing, but who are not worldly wise and kind of impulsive. That's going to matter, that temperament matters at these levels of society. And I always find that really interesting. And, as far, Alphonsus, this is called The Tragedy of Alphonsus. And if something really, really horrible happens to him, I'm not going to mind.
No. I mean that's the thing. It has that the original series of House of Cards quality to it. He talks to us, he's villainous. We kind of want him to succeed up to a point because we know that's going to drive the story, but we also want him to lose horribly, and we can hope for that. I mean, that's the question of what on a really prosaic and boring level of just going, well, how does one market a play like this? Because we could lump it with history plays, English history plays, because it sort of connects with them, but they don't really do what other history plays do, in the sense we're not really following an English monarch in the same way. But maybe we should just lean into the fact that it's a really fun revenge murdery thing, and that's actually that's a much better way to tell the audience this is what you're going to get, which does make a difference further down the line, but it's not something we need to worry about now. Eric.
Weirdly, I would bunch it with Geronimo and Spanish tragedy stuff, because it kind of fits in terms of the mood. You have but then Lorenzo from that one, just purely coincidentally named Lorenzo, is kind of the big bad kind of character. It just kind of doesn't have the same extremes of sort of I will murder everyone as Alphonsus does. But then he's not a king, so.
Yeah, you do get the impression that the author does know Spanish tragedy, because there's various little quirks in the text that seem to be calling back to that. There was a little bit at the beginning when I was going, that's a bit Faustus-y, actually, when they're looking at the books and Alphonsus was left alone. Just little echoes from the past that may be lingering in the playwright's head, that also may be there to hang action on for the audience, but that may or may not be an illusion that I have just conjured in my mind through desperately looking for a pattern when there is none. Helen.
We've got some Edward I history in plays.
And we have an Edward I, indeed.
And we've got who's in Friar Bacon and Friar Bungay. Who have we got there? Is that?
I think that's a young Edward as well.
And I think there's Henry III there.
We don't have a proper Henry III play. We have plays that feature or orbit Henry III, but I don't think, and he vaguely pops in but we don't have a here is Henry III in the same way.
But I mean, if we wanted to slot this in to an English history play cycle, it would fit.
Yes, because it is treating history, or we think it's treating history, actually not as reasonably as other history plays do. It's just not on the British mainland. It's on the continent.
But it's got 3 British characters in it: Isabella, Richard, and Edward. So, English characters. No.
Right. Well, we will continue these thoughts as we gather more data as we go forward. We're having fun so far. Hopefully more people will die. All that remains is to thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, and goodbye. Endless devices, bottomless conclusions.